This is a great hire for the New York Mets. A 38-year-old young kid from Harvard, knows the game very, very well. Statistician, adds that youth to that executive spot. I don't know how long Billy Epler is going to be there as the GM. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't be surprised if David Stearns sometime in the middle of the season hires his own GM. It doesn't make sense why he would keep Billy Epler there, especially if he wants to build this organization the way he has built the Milwaukee Brewers. It's an interesting hire. Steve Cohen is very close, supposedly, to David Stearns. He's been connected to David Stearns since he bought the team. And David Stearns, who grew up in New York, grew up a New York Met fan, this might be his life desire to be the president of the organization.
Right, and you look at the approaches. Billy Epler comes from the Angels, where they were kind of that reckless spending type team, trying to strive in L.A. with the Dodgers, trying to counter them. And the Mets have gotten into that kind of approach, too, since Epler's got there. But even before, when Brodie Van Wagenen was there, too, with the aggressive moves that they make. And David Stearns is somebody that's a good middle ground. You look at the Brewers, the way they've developed their players. Yeah, they brought in some free agents that didn't work. Somebody like a Lorenzo Cain that was good for the first couple of years, but then had some injury issues. Obviously, Christian Yelich's contract doesn't look great now with his injury issues. But still, the Brewers have been able to make good trades and develop good homegrown players as a result. Now, their offense has not been great this year. They've been kind of up and down, but their pitching has been phenomenal. Their bullpen, even trading Josh Hader, they didn't miss a beat this year. And the Mets need those kinds of concepts being brought to that team. The Mets have always done badly bringing in free agent relief pitchers, so they have to maybe bringing in a guy that helps develop their own type. The style that the Brewers have had could help some of these other pitchers that maybe wouldn't be able to get up otherwise. And the Mets pitching depth in their farm system, we know, is very small as it is. So they're going to have to do it really homegrown to start. They can't trust the old philosophy of bringing those old pitchers. You're right, Epler could be fired if he does struggle, but he's going to have to learn how to change his ways to find a middle ground that'll work.
And Corbin Burns, who a lot of people have believed has been connected to the New York Mets and Steve Cohen over the last year. Now that Stearns is there, a guy that drafted him, why wouldn't they make a move to add Corbin Burns to this roster and this pitching staff? I could see that happening this offseason if he becomes available. The Mets have a significant amount of prospects, as they got him from Max Scherzer and the Justin Verlander trade. I could see them making a move for a Corbin Burns. There are quite a few players that really stand out this offseason for a guy like David Stearns that he could look at. He wants to make this team one of the better young, talented teams in the National League. Being that he's 38 years old, he knows about stats. He understands. He looks at the stats. He's a Harvard graduate. So it's going to be interesting in how the Mets move forward as Stearns as the president and Billy Epler as the GM. I don't think it's going to work. I think Steve Cohen is trying to be nice. He's trying to mention Buck Showalter. He's uncertain because he already knows what's going to happen. At the end of the season, they're going to fire Buck Showalter. David Stearns will probably bring in his own coach. I wouldn't be surprised if he brings in Craig Counsell. He is the manager right now of the Milwaukee Brewers, but what the Mets are probably going to try to do is try to bring his guys in to help him out and move forward with this team and this organization, because I think the Mets understand what they're trying to do now. They're not trying to bring in these veteran guys anymore. I think they're done with bringing in those Max Scherzers and those Justin Verlanders. I think they want to build around youth and their farm system. And what is David Stearns good at? Go look at what the Milwaukee Brewers have built over the last couple of years. They built the farm system, and they draft right. And I think David Stearns will do the same for the New York Mets.
Right. The Mets have to avoid these flashy moves in order to do that. They have to get more quality. Like, a lot of the Brewers players were under the radar, too. Like, they're under the radar stars and superstars. Like, even somebody like Christian Yelich. Yeah, he was good in Miami, but he wasn't very well known. Then he all of a sudden got national attention when he won an MVP. Same kind of thing with their pitchers. Corbin Burns, been steadily one of the best top 5 pitchers in baseball the last 3 years. And then Brandon Woodruff has been steadily a top 10, top 15 pitcher. Not far behind them either. And they've been able to build depth in that rotation. But these guys are not very flashy names because the Brewers are not a big market. They're kind of a middle tier market. They'll spend money on occasion, but they have to know those types of quality of players too. And I just think the organizational approach for the Mets too has to look at something like the Brewers with their bullpen, with the way they built their team. Now, Craig Counsell as a manager, I think, has been steadily good as well. The only thing that hurt him this year was he was one of the managers that shifted a lot, and obviously that new rule is gone now from baseball. The Brewers have still been able to have good position player defense amidst that.
And Pete Alonso, at the trade deadline, there was a lot of conversations that there was teams interested in Pete Alonso. One of them were the Brewers.
Yep.
So why would David Stearns want to trade him in the offseason? It doesn't make sense. I expect them to renegotiate this deal that Pete Alonso wants. I think they'll try to match some of the top corner infielders, first basemen that we've seen. I expect him to make $160, $170 million.